Hello and welcome back to the Rugby Pod. I'm Andy Rowe, Big Jim and Goody. With me as usual, Beer 52 are with us throughout the Six Nations, offering you free beers delivered straight to your door from the very best breweries on the planet. You can get a case of 8 free beers and there's no minimum commitment. So you can just take the free case, try the beers, see what you think, and you can pause or cancel at any point. It's perfect to go with your Six Nations viewing. All you need to do is go to beer52.com/rugby and cover the postage. That's the word beer followed by the number 52.com/rugby to get your first case of 8 beers for free. And if you've been enjoying your free Beer 52 cases, make sure you tag them and us on social media as well. How's your week been, boys?
Yeah, not bad, to be honest. I'm out of bed. It's been 3 long weeks in bed, and this week was all about reflection. A lot of reflection going on this week, and I've looked inside myself and I've looked at myself.
But what does the inside look like? Tell me.
I mean, pretty horrible at the minute.
Absolutely ridiculous, I imagine.
But yeah, I've looked at myself and I've thought it's time. It is time, James, isn't it, to take my diet a bit more seriously and reflect on what's gone on before. And
just lay the scene. So from your eyes and from the bed upside down, looking up, and the smells and the sweat and the aromas and the shedding of skin and the soreness of bed sores. Talk to me about how you've got to this point of reflection, and then we can look forward into what seems like, in my opinion, IMO, the right direction for you to go. Just
well, let's be honest.
We don't want to bring up history, but hit me with the reason for the reflection first, just to set the scene for me and the millions out there.
Well, it's pretty easy. So lying in bed for 3 weeks, I got the mirrors on the ceiling to be able to have a look up when when things are happening. And what I saw, I just wasn't happy with. I'll be honest. I'm looking up at the ceiling.
Well, that's because it's you. That's because the reflection is you. I imagine if the mirrors are on the roof, it's a reflection of someone else. I mean, I don't know what positions go on, but I imagine if you're on top and you're trying to look back, you just see a rug, which is your back. So you've seen
yeah,
you.
And I thought the time is now, James.
It was the first time you've seen. You've
got stuck into me for that long. I thought I've got to sort it out. So did a bit of research, spoke to a few people, and I've got involved with a company called Tweaked, who I've been putting some social media posts out there. They're an amazing company that are helping me along with my lifestyle with some healthy, nutritious, balanced meals.
Do they know?
Calorie controlled.
Yeah, I know. I understand where we're going here. So healthy meals for Goody, but they're called tweaked, which means they're slightly tweaking what's gone on before. There's a tweak. Get it? They're trying to tweak your lifestyle and your diet.
They should be called the overhaulers then. But yeah, tweaked meals, they're brilliant. And they've introduced my taste buds to a new aroma of things and foods, and foods that I can't even pronounce some of them. So I might need a bit of help from you, Jim, because you take your nutrition fairly seriously over time. There's these green things that look like trees. They're called broccoli or something. What's that?
Well, yours are called mayonnaise broccoli by looking at the mayonnaise that you posted as well.
Geez,
so broccoli and mayonnaise. I don't know if that
is that how you say it? Broccoli?
Broccoli.
Okay, and then there's something called, it looks like a leaf, called cabbage. Cabbage?
No, it's cabbage.
Oh, cabbage. Okay. And then there's another thing that keeps going there. Again, green, a lot of greenery, vegetables. I'm looking for the star bars.
Green is lean, they say.
There's no star bars in there. And another thing, Cali. It looks like a frilly leaf.
Oh, it's Cayley dancing. It's named after a Scottish dance.
Oh, okay. Kale?
Cayley dancing.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, I've been introduced to some amazing foods, but honestly, without taking the mickey or taking the pish, the food is unbelievable. And I'm actually having to turn some of the food down, so I can't eat it all, which is amazing. I know.
Well, with a pint of mayonnaise on there, I'm surprised your tongue ain't fell off.
But yeah, the food's been unbelievable. I've dropped 3 or 4 kilos already.
From where?
From Carolyn thinks from my knees, to be honest. But it's been a week of reflection, and I thought about you a fair bit this week, Jim. None more so than today, because I'm not having anyone calling you stupid anymore. I'm not having it.
Stupid, you're a good. Who said it?
You're a good friend of mine. People think that you're a bit of a clown sometimes. You're perhaps not as intelligent as people make it. I think you're an intelligent guy, Jim, because I'm just going to rewind a week on this podcast. And we talked about last week the celebrations in the France dressing room when they absolutely dominated. Well, they didn't dominate Ireland. They just beat Ireland in Dublin, but it was the first time in 10 years. And you just said one thing, Jim. You just said, all I want to know in those celebrations, where's the masks? Where are the masks? And now look at France. 10 of them have got COVID. So, Jim, you're a wise man. And from this day forward, I will eat my greens like you eat your greens. I will be healthy as much as I can be. And I will eat my tweaked meals. And I will also listen to James Hamilton, the Oracle, the intelligent, wonderful looking man that sits before me now on this podcast. So thank you, James, for showing me the light and being the intelligent one.
I just want to correct you before we get into how my week's gone, and Andy Rowe can ask me that. I don't say mask. I went to state school. I say mask. I say mask, FYI. And I'm Scottish. That's what the Scots say.
Okay. Well, I say mask. So where in France, where are the fucking masks? Because they've now got 10 of them with COVID.
Jim, tell me about your week, mate.
Oh, loads going on. Not a lot, really. I've been waiting for today when the roadmap, anyone who follows me on social media, which is, I am up to 70,000 followers now, my agent told me.
Who's your agent? You?
I haven't got one. No, Al Twyman, he's a great man. He's been working wonders for me. Just said, you've got to do what Gooley does and just send a barrage of tweets out. And then in between that, just put like a political one, which basically divides opinion, and just put a few comments about rugby on, which can be seen as divisive, but generally hits the mark. So that's what I've done, and I've managed to get up there to 70,000 people. But anyway, I put a few out about seeing this roadmap, which has been released as we're recording the podcast, and I've not seen any celebrations or GIAFs coming through from the family, so I can't believe that it's good news off the back of that. But I'm lucky. I'm one of the lucky ones, because I was commentating on the big one at the weekend. Hashtag always Edinburgh against hashtag got hose Munster, and it got me out of the house. I enjoyed that, but they've changed the protocols for whatever reason now. For whatever reason, because this is the life that we live in and the world that we live in. If the rules weren't hard enough to follow anyway, in terms of protocol before you go to a game in a stadium and filling in forms, and I've filled them in wrong before, they basically say, have you been in contact with anyone? Yes, no. And I've just basically put no for all of the things on the questionnaire, because you just kind of preempt that you know what you're doing, don't you? But I've put no to, are you feeling well? No. Have you got a car? No. And I'm rocking up in a car trying to tell them that I feel all right. And then now they're sitting us in different parts of the stadium. So I was with Stevie Ferris, but he couldn't be down with us before the game, but I could be next to him for the game. And there's cameras pointing different directions. The poor people trying to put these productions together. It's impossible with the ever-changing landscape that we find ourselves in. But anyway, it's not about me. Phoebe went back to school this morning, and there was a big celebration. Not from JJ, he's absolutely raging. He's shadow boxing in the other lounge because he ain't going back to school. He probably, arguably, is the one that needs to go back to school. He's 10, starts secondary school in a couple of years' time. Could be a year's time. I've lost track of years and days. But Phoebe's gone back to do some drawing and some colouring and getting a story read to her, whereas JJ's at home shadow boxing in the lounge, and that's about it. But who knows? We seem to have a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. A little bit of light, and just as we thought things were getting better, like you said, Andrew, the French were celebrating a win against Ireland, and there's stuff to talk about now because it looks like they're going to be absolutely fact for the weekend. Blame Fabian.
Well, we'll have a look ahead to round 3 of the Guinness Six Nations in a bit, but it was quite a weekend in the Premiership. No relegation, but that didn't make things any less entertaining. We'll come to the red cards shortly, but first, what do you guys make of the end of the game, Exeter v Northampton?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them, isn't it? So Christoph Ridley's there. He felt he moved forward. I mean, I don't understand why you make a decision like that and then sprint down the tunnel as fast as you can to get away from the pitch, even though there's no fans, without using the TMO. TMO is there to be used if it's the right decision. You've got the backing of the technology there to show that he moved. They didn't advance before we moved. You've got a load of different views on it that you can look at. And that's, I think the mistake would have been not going to the TMO. Is his decision right? I mean, only, there's videos going around that was a little move forward, but then you can ask, well, who was shouting? He's moved because you're not allowed to shout when people charge. So it's not as clear cut as he moved forward. So you're allowed to go and scream and shout and get there as fast as Slightholme did and hoof the ball off the tee. What it will do is it will sharpen Joe Simmons' mind in understanding, as an ex-kicker myself, who that's happened to, and luckily what you've got to do is have the minerals to stand still and tell the ref, no, I didn't move, I didn't move, and then you get to retake it again and it goes over. But what it will do is it will sharpen his mind to work on his actual technique, so that doesn't happen again. He won't take that little step forward, if that was what it was, that triggered the Northampton players to get the charge down. But bottom line on the charge down is Northampton were fully deserving of that victory. The pitch looked like Barker Butts under sevens when I was about 5, playing 2 years above, because I was that good when I was a kid.
You're getting drowned by Kersley
on a Sunday morning, and it was horrific, that pitch, wasn't it?
It was. You'll believe this or believe this not, guys. I have charged down someone taking a conversion. I shit you not.
Was this against India as well, was it?
It wasn't against India. I didn't even bother charging down because I didn't score a try. But I probably would have done. It was on a pitch somewhere in the Championship, playing for Nottingham. I think it was Bedford. Let's just say it was Coventry. And I've charged down the kicker. No word of lie. And ever since that day, for the laugh and the comical value, because normally when you charge down a conversion, you've had a try scored against you, so everyone's absolutely raging. I charged down a kick every single time, just to show that the lads how much I wanted it. Come the kickoff, I am absolutely fucked. And if the ball stayed in play longer than a minute,
the kickoff.
I couldn't chase the kickoff properly, so I chased. Mate, you've got to put them off, mate. You don't know. At the weekend, as we know, you don't know. Just keep chasing, and that kick, charge down. That could be Northampton's season right there, top 4.
What do you guys make? Do you think it should have been a charge down or not?
All right, mate. Bottom line is Christoph Ridley has made the decision. He's blown the final whistle, and that is the decision that he's made. And Northampton have won the game. So, you only back that. You can question it. You can question why he didn't use the TMO, as I said before. And I'm sure the referees will all sit around this week and say, listen, when there's a decision like that on the line, you've got the technology, just use it. Back yourself, but also don't leave yourself open to not using the technology if it's there to be used on such a decisive thing. But, Exeter haven't stamped their feet around it, have they? They've taken it exactly as you'd expect Rob Baxter to. They know that that's not going to hinge, that result isn't going to hinge on them making top 4 or not, because they will be in the top 4. So it's a lesson learned, and we move on.
Another win for Quins and back-to-back defeats for Sale now.
To be fair to Quins,
here we go.
Obviously a good team.
There we go.
When they want to be. And they've wanted to be in the last couple of weeks. I'll say it, credit where it's due.
Yeah.
They're playing with, some much needed energy, marching in the centre, quality player.
Marcus Smith, ridiculously good at that.
Yeah, Marcus Smith's on a new deal. He's followed off the back of that. You've got an international class scrum half in Danny Kerr there. Joe Marler's there as well, playing week in, week out for them. Don Brandt, physical. Love Will Evans in the back row. He's getting better and better every time he plays. I can't believe Leicester let him go. So they've got a lot going for them, Quins. We've always said that. And then they're putting a few together when it matters. So you wonder if they need a director of rugby or whatever these teams think that they need in terms of running the show. And, we saw at Wasps, obviously Lee Blackett took the reins when Di Young left, and they kept him on, and they all signed longer term deals. You wonder what they'll do with Quins, but there's talk of Scotty Robertson, our mate, coming up from New Zealand. There was rumours in the media. You wonder whether that's going to be the right fit for them. What is that going to do? What are Quins' ambition? Have they got the squad to be the top 4, top 2? I'm not too sure, but
it's ironic. It's ironic, though, isn't it? So what they used to get found out with Quins is when the England players used to go away, the likes of Danny Kerr, Marler, Mike Brown, and the list sort of carries on a little bit. They used to go away with England, and their second-rate players weren't anywhere near as good. Now, start of the year, you're questioning the desire of some of those Quins players. They're, how much they're actually putting it in for the jersey. Obviously, there was a change, and now all these players are playing like absolute worldies. So, yes, they're living up to their expectations. Marcus Smith he should be in the England squad. He's on that good a form that there's no question he should be in the England squad. It's just ridiculous that he's not. He's got facets of the game as a 10 that, and this is a big statement. The geezer's just retired. Well, no, the geezer's just retired. Dan Carter has just retired, right? Marcus Smith has got
Is this you sucking up to Dan Carter again? Come on.
No, Marcus Smith is of that ilk. in what he can do around the game, and his decision making now is just getting better and better with experience. His understanding of the game as well. So
you're going to make headlines with this. You're making headlines for this young fella by saying this.
Well, I'm not saying he is as good as Dan Carter. What I'm saying is the way he plays, his all-court game, his kicking, his distribution, his attacking the game line, he's got everything you need as a 10. And
so why is he not being picked?
Well, because of Eddie Jones and Owen Farrell and George Ford are his best buddies. But what I'm saying is he's now doing it consistently. You can see, we've seen it for the last couple of years since he burst onto the scene, that he had those capabilities across every snippet of the game. He's now doing every part of the game at a top tier level, international level, week in, week out. And, that comes with experience, confidence and everything. And fair play to Quins that, they're challengers, but anyone at the minute, you could look at a lot of teams and go, they could put a run together and go on and win this Premiership this year, because it's wide open, isn't it? Looking at some of the other games as well that we'll get to, but Quins are in a 4-game winning streak that is, they're looking like they're playing with confidence, and all of a sudden those big time players are rocking up for the jersey, which they weren't doing a few weeks back.
I will make a statement here. If Scotty Robertson goes, I will support Quins with him at the helm.
Oh, there we go. I was going to ask you that actually, because Scotty Robertson, big friend,
Dan's partner, yeah,
big bloke, bad knees, hell of a coach,
hell of a bloke,
loves a beer, loves a culture. You'd be a Quins fan, would you? You've heard it on the podcast here first, people.
If
Jim Hamilton would support Harlequins, would you go there to be in his coaching team as well? Would you go that far?
No, I'm going viral now. I've got over 70,000 followers on social. I don't need to.
Well, Daniel Marshall asked us on Twitter, given the red cards all weekend, how on earth did the Sale 6 not get a red for a clear shoulder to the head in front of the ref and TMO when Les has been punished for a red card this week?
Well, I mean, it's definitely a yellow card. And I think it comes down to the interpretation of where he makes contact with. So he's illegal all the way through. The way I think it's, again, a chicken wing description of how he flies into the ruck with his shoulder. And I think the referee and the TMO didn't think he made contact with the head, but it should have been a yellow card without a shadow of a doubt. Another one on a different game, Tom Young's at the end of the Leicester Wasps game, which we'll get onto later. He does exactly the same thing, doesn't catch his head, but flies in, tucked arm, shoulder into the body hard, but illegally. It's a penalty and yellow card probably, but there's a million, well, it's not a million, Eddie Jones used that word last week. There's hundreds of instances throughout the game where people are flying to rucks, and, a microscope is needed sometimes to see every bit of contact at the ruck zone. And I think when you look at it, you're trying to take away all the big ones that are clear and obvious. And then some are going to get missed by the ref and TMO normally, because the TMO is either having a poo or going for a biscuit and a cup of tea. But Dupree's one was clear. It should have been a yellow card. It's not a red for me because he doesn't make contact with the head, in my opinion, but I haven't seen all the angles. So what do I know?
Hell of a comeback from London Irish against Bristol, lads.
Should have won it. You've got a 6-on-2 inside overlap. Who are you going to hit? No one. Hit the floor. Fair play to London Irish. I mean,
Sean O'Brien off the bench was ridiculous.
Yeah, he was very good. Very good. I saw some stats come out. Quality player. I'm just glad to see him back. He had a nasty injury, and it was a big move, him going to London Irish, obviously, having spent all his career in Ireland. Yeah, great to see him back. Just got quality, and everyone keeps talking about their bench, but fair play to Kidney Bean, Declan Kidney Bean. He is, he's putting something together there. Like London Irish, new ground. It's positive there. I think it's great to have a London Irish, or a London Scottish or a London Welsh, like that kind of exile influence on the Prem, and London Irish proper. And you look at Exeter not doing as great. Bristol have struggled the last few weeks because they've probably not got Semi-Randra playing, and for them to come back says a lot about the team, doesn't it? Really, to be fair.
Yeah, it does. And I think one of the big drivers, you mentioned Declan Kidney Bean, but Brad Davis, one of my old coaches at Wasps, he is a world-class coach. And I saw him on the sideline. He was struggling with his mask a little bit. He had his mask just covering his nose, not his mouth. So I gave him a bit of banter. He said he was just glad his teeth didn't fall out, because he normally screams and his teeth pop out. But you look at some of their players they've got there. Paddy Jackson, brilliant form. Curtis Rona on great form as well. Loader on the wing. He looks awesome as well. Quick, powerful. I messaged Brad Davis after the game, the coach. I said, mate, you're in with a sniff this year with that team. You bring Shawnee O'Brien off the bench, Augustine Creevy, the quality they've got, but they've also got some really good youngsters coming through as well. So, Taylor two halves, wasn't it? Bristol dominated that first half. Piatow was unplayable at times, and now Langer as well was ridiculous. Imagine a back line. You've got now Langer on one wing, you've got Semi Randrandra at 13, you've got Piatow at the back. I mean, just play touch balls and shout your man, because those boys are ridiculous. But Irish loaded their bench, brought their experience on as Bristol took a bit of their experience off, and they Parton, you just felt sorry for him making that break. Then just give it someone. Just don't feed the floor. Just feed someone under the sticks, pal.
Dolly Parton, mate, you've got to hit someone.
So he scored the try that levelled it, but you can only feel for him. Hell of a game though. That made me excited about Ruggers again, because attacking intent was phenomenal from both teams.
Weather. I thought the weather made a big difference, Andrew.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a weatherman. Again, summer rugby.
Yeah. I'm a secret London Irish fan now, because I love Brad Davis as a coach, as a bloke. I hope they go well.
Special note, though, was it Mitch Heaney who tried to run on with his mask over his eyes?
He did, yeah.
My word. Good lad, mate. The French wouldn't do that, that's for sure.
Well, we could discuss all the red cards ourselves, but we thought we'd get someone in just a little bit more knowledgeable than us. Most experienced ref in the game, Wayne, joins us. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you. Always a pleasure to join you three on the Rugby Pod.
Barnesy, it's great to have you here. And I have got the very first question. It's 5-year anniversary of our little patter where I made you famous on social media, between the chat between yourself and me, Newcastle against Northampton Saints, when I actually couldn't chat or breathe. I made a bit of banter on the field, and I got Premiership Rugby to put the video out to millions of people. I've made you famous. You weren't on social media. My big question to you is, you've come on Twitter. I've made you famous. You don't even follow me on Twitter now. What's going on, Barnesy? How are you, son?
I'm really well. 5 years ago, Goody, it's amazing, isn't it? That in 5 years, all that happens to me is I've lost my hair, but somehow you seem to have grown more hair since.
I've just grown. It's not just hair, mate. I've just grown. Let's just leave it at that, shall we? But, mate, great to have you on. Really appreciate your time. Social media, I mean, you only need to put one tweet out and you're getting hundreds of thousands of followers already. No, you're a legend, aren't you?
Well, I just think it's really important to, at the moment, we're doing some little kind of explanations about the law on Throw the Book. So each week we just try and simplify what is sometimes a bit of a complicated game. I steal my children's little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys and just try and demystify some of those, complex laws. And, I'm sure we'll discuss some of them as we go along this afternoon. But rugby, isn't always black and white. And so if I can help you and Jim, kind of understand the laws a little bit better, and some of the people at home, so when they're watching rugby, they understand the decisions that referees have to make. We have to make a lot of them. Then, hopefully I can do that by my little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
But how difficult is it putting yourself out there to the masses whilst you're still refereeing at the highest level?
Of course, as soon as you go on social media, people can contact you and give you their opinions. But what I want to do, the whole point of going on to Twitter and going on to YouTube, is to help people understand the game better. I'm not out there to tell people what I think about other referees' decisions. That's definitely not my job, to come out here and say I thought referee X got it right or referee X got it wrong. That's your job. That's yours and Goody's job as commentators on the game, to get out there. When I do my work on Channel 5, my job is to explain the game to people. And then that's all I'm doing with these YouTube little clips. It's just to help people understand the game of rugby a little bit better.
Let's get into it then, Barnesy. We've seen 5 red cards over the weekend. You got yours out a couple of times down at Bath on Friday night. Or 3 times. Was it 3 or 2? I can't remember. There's been that many. I can't remember. 2. But it's obviously a massive talking point in the game at the minute. We've seen other refs. Nigel Owens went on BT Sport yesterday and said the players and the coaches need to learn fast. How tough is it for a referee dishing out these red cards at the minute when you're given the guidelines from World Rugby around what's right and wrong and how you have to referee it? And ultimately, a lot of this is coming from the players, isn't it?
Well, I think that's a really important point, Goody, in that the World Rugby kind of guidelines have been driven on this occasion by players and by coaches. So, constantly being reviewed, the laws, because rugby constantly evolves. The most recent one had people like Gregor Townsend, Dave Rennie. It had players such as Conrad Smith and the International Players Union, led by David Quinlan, out there telling referees that we've got to be strong on foul play. And there is a zero tolerance to foul play when there's head contact. That's what we're being told as referees to go out there and deliver. And so, if the players and the coaches are telling referees to do that, we've got to go out and deliver that. And so on Friday, unfortunately, no referee wants to send a player off. But believe me, not even when I sent you off, Goody, I didn't really want to.
Well, I bought you a muffin and a coffee. They didn't work. Pretty much.
But we don't want to do that. But when a player hits another player in the head, and there's no mitigation, then we've got a straightforward decision to do. We've got to send that player off. And and unfortunately, there were 5 instances this weekend. But players will change their behaviour. It was really interesting to, I think it was Ali Eakin commentating on Friday night, speaking about, well, we saw a change in player behaviour about the contest in the air. Very rarely do you see players going underneath each other as much as they did. We saw a change in player behaviour about tip tackles. We don't see those big driving down tackles now that we've seen before. So we see changes of players' behaviour. It was interesting that Nigel said that yesterday. Players need to change their tackling technique, because that's what we're being told that players want us to do, and they want coaches to kind of hammer home that message as well. Change player behaviour, and if you get it wrong, unfortunately you're going to have to receive a sanction.
Yeah, because we've spoken about it on here, even at the beginning, Barnsley. I don't know whether it was you who refereed the game where we sent Will Spencer off for the kind of high tackle on the adjust. Yeah. I know Kieran Brooks looked a little bit different because he was the adjusting tackler, but then you look at Jasper Wiese's, probably similar in terms of what Xander Fagerson did as well. I find it absolutely crazy that the players, and this is coming from a bloke who played the way that he did, who was a liability and played that way in terms of hitting breakdowns. But when you see it now, like, why this weekend? Why so many this weekend, do you think this will be the shift that probably the game needs? Because I'm chatting to a guy, literally getting a coffee earlier, and he's, what about the games going soft? And you can see he was an old school rugby bloke, and we're talking about it, but there's no, like you said, there's no grey area. That's why it's easy now on Twitter when we're sat at home and you're refereeing, the lads are playing, when it's a shoulder to the head with force, and a lot of the time there's not a lot of mitigation, it's a red card. And do you think after this weekend the players and coaches might have got the message now?
No, I think what's interesting is you've definitely changed your tone, Jim. If I would have spoken to you about this 12 months ago, maybe even 6 months ago, you would have used those words of, things like the game's gone soft, or come on, that's part of the game. But you now understand it more. And I think we all read the press, and we all hear about the concerns in the game, and we've all got a role to play. And so my role is to take what the players and the coaches are telling us they want us to do. Your role, I think, is to go out there and say, when we are doing these, doing these matches, and you're commentating or you're reviewing it on a Monday, is to say, look, the players are really, really clear, that real clarity in what they're being asked to do. And it's when you make a tackle, or when you come into a breakdown, it's to use your arms, wrap, attempt to grasp, and go a bit lower. Don't target someone's head. And if you get it wrong, because there's a slight adjustment, you're going to end up either going off for 10 minutes, or you're going to be sent off. And eventually players will adjust, and eventually coaches will say, you cannot keep doing this, because it's really hard. Though Gloucester gave it a good crack on Friday night, playing a lot of the game with 14 men. It's very hard to win games when you're one man down.
One of the things I want to ask you about, Barnsley, and I've spoken to you away from a podcast around this over the last couple of years, and it might be really helpful to our listeners, the millions of listeners, about the actual tackler that's coming in, whether it's the first guy or the second guy. We've seen a lot of these upright tackles where it's chest on chest. One of the points I'd like you to make is talk about actually the shoulder that you hit with, and what the arm has to be doing with that shoulder. So right arm, let's take Kieran Brooks' one, for example, at the weekend. He's gone in as a second tackler with his right hand side going to hit the second row, Lavanini. What has he got to do with his arm to show that actually it's not just a foul play from the outset, because it's not just a straight shoulder to head? What should he have changed?
So the law book's really clear on this. When you make a tackle, you've got to be attempting to grasp. and you can't do that with either your arm in what, would be described by some coaches as a chicken wing, almost across the body, or you can't do that attempt to grasp if your arm is turned backwards and your knuckles are clenched. You're not attempting to grasp. So what we want to see players doing is when they hit with that right shoulder, their right arm is coming around and grasping or attempting to grasp at the same time. Don't be putting your arm in a chicken wing. Don't be hiding your arm backwards, and don't be twisting your hand so you cannot grasp at all. So attempt to grasp, and then we understand that sometimes things go wrong. But if you go into a tackle and you are just leading with that shoulder, with your arm in a non-grasping position, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble.
You are. Barnsley, another thing as well that's been highlighted, the Six Nations a couple of weeks ago with the nasty injury that we saw to Jack Willis, and we've seen a few. I probably need a little bit of education on this as well, because there's a few conflicting answers and stuff that you read around the crocodile roll out of a breakdown with what Seb Negri did on Jack Willis, and we see it all the time. I've seen loads, I've commentated on games, I've seen some nasty injuries, I've played in games where some of the players are injured. What is the law book saying, and what are the directives around that part of the game and the breakdown?
I think it's important to understand that World Rugby are constantly looking at the laws, and player welfare is always at the forefront of what they do. And you'll recall, and I think we discussed this probably on this podcast, or definitely as individuals before, there was a breakdown working group which kind of reported back about a year ago. And people on that: Joe Schmidt, Ian Foster, Richie Gray, the coach, not the player, Victor Vito, Josh Beaumont, all of that they and some refs got together and discussed everything about the breakdown. Talking about arriving with shoulders being tucked, talking about just hitting off their feet to stop the competition, really encouraging players to lift the ball. And one thing that was discussed by the World Rugby Working Group was the crocodile roll, and referees weren't asked on the back of that to start penalising it. So again, we take on board what World Rugby says and what the players and coaches are asking us. And of course, we know what the law says: you cannot collapse a ruck. But the crocodile roll, that there is an argument that you are collapsing a ruck. You grab hold of someone, you pull them to the floor, so that could be collapsing a ruck. But we're not asked to referee that kind of law in that way. Now, people will say, well, come on, just referee the laws, referee the laws of the game. Well, the laws of rugby aren't black and white in every single situation. There are greys, and it does need an interpretation. And that's one of those areas where we'll say that's not how the law is designed for. That's not the area that it was, the collapsing ruck was brought in for. As an example, Jim, you'll know that you can't tackle a man or woman in the air when they're trying to score a try. Sorry, not when they're scoring a try. You just can't tackle a player in the air. We know that. But then when a player dives for the corner, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in a moment, player dives for the corner, flicks their heels up to avoid going into touch, everyone's allowed to tackle them, even though they're in the air. Both of their feet are off the ground, because that's how you interpret the laws. Rugby isn't, just black and white. There's an element of subjectivity in it. So you take that crocodile roll. Yes, I know what the law says around collapsing rucks. You cannot do it. But the World Rugby Working Group has said, crocodile rolls at the moment are legal.
And just on that, then, you mentioned it. Then let's not beat around Jim's bush. Let's talk about the Johnny May episode at Twickenham. Everyone's saying what a wonderful try, unbelievable finish. Apart from Jim, actually, yeah.
I feel bad about that now.
And there were quite a few people. Clearly, I know. Again, I don't want to bring Nigel Owens up too much, but he went out on Twitter and said, it's the difference between, is he jumping the tackle to avoid being tackled, or is he starting his dive? How hard is that for a ref in the moment then? And we talked about it on the podcast last week around Mike Adamson's decision making on that. How hard is it for a referee in that split second to make that decision? Did Johnny May jump the tackle, or is he trying to dive and the actor scoring?
Well, I think that's a question, isn't it? And that's what the referee has to do by having a quick look at the screen, discussing it with his or her teammates, and deciding, well, was he diving to score, or was he jumping to avoid the tackle? Another grey area, Goody. The law book doesn't talk about you cannot jump to avoid the tackle. There's nothing in the law book that says you can't, but we all know that that's dangerous. If you're running down the pitch, down the halfway line, someone's coming across to tackle you, you can't hurdle over them. because you don't want to catch a knee, you don't want to catch an ankle. But the law book doesn't specifically say you cannot jump over a tackle, but that's how we interpret it. We say that's dangerous play. In the Johnny May incident, it splits opinion. Some people think he's diving to score. Other people think he's jumping over the tackle. I was listening into a referee society meeting early last week. You would have loved it. It was, I'm sure
loads of banter. I bet there's loads going on.
Loads of banter. And they had a vote at the end of it, and it was 18-15 split on whether they thought the try should be scored. And there's there are those decisions in rugby which will split opinion. If you're an English fan, you're going to think it's a try. If you're an Italian fan. Actually, if you're an Italian, Welsh, Scottish, French,
Irish,
I think it's
French.
dry. So, one of those will split opinion.
Who won then? The 18? Who were the 18? Try or no try?
I think they awarded a try in the 18. So positive.
Oh, English. They were the English.
and an English referee society.
It was Barnsley. Well, you know what? The engagement got me 3,000 extra followers, mate. So either way, it was a positive. Barnsley, orange cards. Is there any likelihood of us seeing anything like that? Are we watching down in Australia with a kind of keen eye to see how that unfolds? Would you be for that or not?
I think it's really interesting to see Law's trial, because we have to keep up, the lawmakers and then the decision makers has to keep up with the game. So, trialing it to see if it works. And I think I haven't watched this weekend's Super Rugby Australia game, but I'm told that there was a red card or an orange card in it, and the player came back on after 20 minutes. So, they're trialing that. The other thing that they're trialing over in New Zealand is the TMO captain's referral. So a bit like cricket, where captain can go over and say, I want you to check X, Y, or Z, or I want you to check this bit of foul play, or I think it's our scrum and not their scrum in the last 5 minutes. So some really interesting trials down in Australia and New Zealand. I always like to sit back and watch, see how they evolve, and then make my opinion up, because you can make a prat of yourself if you come out and say, I think it'll be a wonderful idea, and then it gets no support whatsoever.
So you sit on the fence, Barnsley, is that what you're saying?
The job as a referee.
Well, let's talk about that, because obviously that captain's call one that you're talking about, that obviously involves the referee and the captain having a chat. And one of the things that's been highlighted recently is the amount of back chat going on in the game and conversing with referees in a way that perhaps shouldn't be seen sometimes. And maybe it's enhanced because there's no fans in the stadium, so there's even more of a microscope on it. What's your feeling on that? Because I joked earlier about our conversations on the field when I'm trying to catch my breath a few years back. Are you feeling that as a referee, that there is a bit of that creeping in, or is it just understanding some refs like to talk more than others to players and converse that way?
The unique thing about rugby, isn't it, is the interactions between players and refs, and that's why when I started off back in the Forest of Dean doing Breamfords versus Bury or Whoppers, it's what kind of got me hooked, because you had 30 people running around a pitch giving you a bit of insight into the game and giving you their opinions. Now, there is a difference between you jogging up to me during that game up in Newcastle and having a little bit of banter with someone then screaming and shouting at me and disagreeing with a decision, which the game as a whole can hear, because, I've got 2 children. I want them to play the sport, but I also want them to understand what the fundamental principles are in rugby. And one of them is respect, isn't it? And of course you can ask questions. And of course there's a way of saying that, I think that might be a harsh call. But, what I always say is, if you're the captain or if you're one of the senior players who's got a role of that interaction, as long as you speak to me in the way that I speak to you, I think that's fair enough. So don't come running and screaming and shouting at me. But if you've got a question, of course, come and ask me. Just do it at the right time and in the right way.
You're more than them things that you said, Barnsley. You're a YouTuber as well. You're like, let's get that right. You're a YouTuber.
And what he's basically saying is he's teaching his kids to know that dad's the boss. So I might try that in my house as well.
Oh, no, it's really interesting with the homeschooling at the moment that when my West Country twang comes out now and again, particularly when I say words like dance or chance, my daughter is picking me up on it now and saying, Daddy, no, it's not dance, it's dance. I'm like, right.
Dance and chance and mask. How do you say mask?
Yeah, mask. Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Barnsley, talking of masks. Now, I don't know whether you've, obviously you have. I don't know whether you know what's happening this weekend, whether you'll be heading to Paris. I genuinely think if that game goes ahead, you need to be the mask police. You need to be the mask police. When the French physios run on and they've got the thing hanging out the top of their mask and the Scottish physios are on with full PPE, you could be the person, if the game goes ahead, that can be directing them to triple mask up. Likelihood of the game going ahead, are you hearing anything, or is it just the same as us? You're just watching things unfold?
Yeah, so I'm refereeing France-Scotland on the weekend. Matthew Carley's coming over, Tom Foley's coming over, so a good English contingent going over.
Lads, eh?
Well, it won't be much lads. It's you arrive at the hotel, you stay in a hotel till you get driven to the Stade de France, then you get taken back to the Stade de France, and we'll have 3 COVID tests this week just to make sure we can get in and out safely. We're the same as you, Jim. You know, as far as I've been told at the moment, the game is on. I've not been told anything different. And, you know, I just, you know, someone who had COVID back in October, I think you know that I missed out towards the end of last season on a couple of games. You just hope that all those coaches, all those players are well and, you know, and get a speedy recovery, because we want to see top class players out there playing in, you know, what is a fantastic Six Nations at the moment.
How were you with that, Barnsley? How were you with the COVID stuff, being a referee, you know, fitness, having to be just as fit, if not fitter, aerobically as the players?
It was amazing. I wouldn't have known I'd had it, Jim. I was very lucky. You know, you read some awful stories from around the country, but if it wasn't for my twice weekly COVID test, there's no way I would have known about it. Didn't have a sore throat, didn't get a temperature, and so I was extremely fortunate on that front. The RFU then decided that I couldn't have 10 days of total lockdown, so all of a sudden there was a knock on my door about 7 days in, and a watt bike was delivered to
no.
And it was interesting, you know, within 2 weeks of that, I was back refereeing actually the same game. No, France versus Ireland. I went across on the Friday to referee France versus Ireland. So, you know, extremely fortunate that I got that quick turnaround, and you just hope that, you know, that the players that you're reading about this week are the same and as fortunate.
Yeah, definitely. And hey, you got you out of homeschooling for a bit and bath time and all that stuff as well. So well played. You mentioned the Six Nations, the other games that you have done. I want to just quickly talk to you about the Wales-Ireland game, which you refereed and obviously sent Peter O'Mahony off, and rightfully so. As a referee, and clearly I've looked back at it and I spoke to a few people and messaged yourself about it. It was hard for you, the angle that you saw initially. Your sentiment was that it was totally unavoidable. It was a rugby incident. The beauty of having the TMO was the game stopped and you reviewed it and it was a clear red card. One of the things that I'm asking for and I have asked over the last couple of weeks is when a player like Thomas Francis gets hit like that and obviously makes it known to you that he's been hit, he then gets back up in the defensive line and then the play stops and he goes down again. Surely that player, whenever there's any sort of contact like that, needs to go off for a HIA. That's one of the things we're not seeing at the minute. And I'm a little bit sceptical around, all coaches are looking for that edge. Are they going to tell their players to start saying, I've been hit on the head and stay down? So they look at it as a tactic to potentially get players sent off, which we don't want to see either.
As I said, I'm a ref, I'm a homeschooler, I'm even a YouTuber now.
You are.
One thing I'm definitely not is a doctor, Goody. Now, you know, player welfare is at the forefront of everything that not just the RFU but World Rugby are doing at the moment. So I'm sure that this is something that would have been discussed, and doctors and you know, administrators are all over concerns around concussion at the moment. You know, they are taking this as a huge priority, and you know, if that's your concern, you give the RFU a call, give World Rugby a call. But players are now at the forefront of everything that the lawmakers do.
But do the referees not have a say when they say, I've seen him been knocked out, he needs to go for a check? Because has that been part of the process before, or have I just made that up in my own mind?
Most definitely. If we are certain that a player has been knocked out, we would raise that with the medic. But that's, you know, that's quite hard to do. Someone, you know, it's quite easy if someone shows certain signs. You know, we all know those signs. I think it's called some kind of posturing, isn't it, where someone has those rigid arms. It's something like that. I would inform the medic, and then the medic makes a decision. But as I said, I'm definitely not a doctor. I'm definitely not qualified to be telling someone if they're concussed or not, or if they need to go off of HIA. There are clear criteria for that, and that's left for the doctors on the day.
And Barnsley, before you go then, how long have you got left holding the whistle, do you reckon? I mean, you're absolutely flying, it seems, at the minute. Do you keep going until you can't keep up with play, or do you go out on your own terms? And if so, how long you reckon?
I'm massively enjoying it at the moment. What's really nice is the young group of officials who are coming through from the Premiership. You know, we've got the likes of Christoph Ridley coming through, Craig Maxwell Keys. You know, Matt Carley, Luke Pearce are only 33, 34, and they've done over 100 games. So we've got this real young group of officials in the Premiership, and then there's me. But also internationally as well. You know, there's a lot of young referees coming through as well. I've mentioned two of them in Matthew and Luke. But then down in the Southern Hemisphere, the likes of Ben O'Keefe, Nick Berry. You know, there's a real nice group of people, and I like working with them. I like kind of being challenged by them. We get on well, but you know, I won't be running around forever, and I'll know when the right time is. I've got a Six Nations hopefully this weekend, and I'm still working till the end of the season for sure.
Top bloke, Barnsley.
Top bloke.
Always is, isn't he? Always is. Great value. He sat on the fence. Of course he's going to a couple of times. But yeah, mate, brilliant bloke. Very honest. Love what he's doing as well. He wants the social media game, doesn't he, Jim? Starting with the YouTube.
It's not easy to do. You hit a ceiling. Now, Barnsley, like David Attenborough, went up quite quickly. Not to David Attenborough's numbers. Went up quickly enough. In there with the millennials. But the game needs it. Joking aside, the game needs that interaction with engaging referees at the top of the game. Nigel Owens is great, having done that. Barnsley is obviously still in the game. He'll have a different perspective on it. And especially now, right, the game is at a crossroads, it feels, with a lot of things. And you know, I think the whole lockdown thing and the whole social media thing, we've all bloody got an opinion, haven't we? If we're at the games and the fans are at the games, is the engagement and the questioning and the divisiveness going to be the same? Probably not, because we're all going to be absolutely steaming responsibly and loving life, but we've got nothing to do. So we're all at home debating stuff, and in the middle of all that are the referees. So class to have him on, really like Barnsley. And, you know, as long as he goes on for, I don't know, was there a hint there that this might be his last season? I hope not.
No, mate. Well, I know he gets dominated at home by Polly, his better half. And so she's just going to keep sending him out the door to work. But he's also got his legal career to.
Well, I thought he was a coffee maker when he's a barista, isn't he?
Barista, yeah. Some people call it a barista, but he's a barrister. And he's
I thought that was the same thing.
Yeah, he's very, very successful at that as well. So we want him in the game for as long as possible, because you know, as he said, there's a young crop of refs coming through, and he's at the top. He's the beacon of light of everything they're aspiring to be. So the longer he stays around, the longer he educates them and helps them along the way, the better the game will be in terms of the whistle hands that it's going to be held in for future years. So keep going, Barnsley. You're he's a great bloke, isn't he?
Manscaped are supporting us again this week. We're still in the thick of winter, but that doesn't mean you should be neglecting your two best mates. Our friends at Manscaped specialise in products to make sure you're walking around town with slick snowballs. Manscaped's Performance Package is the best buy of 2021. The Performance Package comes with the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0, Weed Whacker, Ear and Nose Trimmer, Performance Boxer Briefs, and a travel bag. Question for you, Jim. Did you know that 79%, this is a real stat, 79% of partners polled admit that long nose hairs is a major turnoff?
Yeah, I think Jim's biggest issue that Beck says is his breath, not his nasal hair.
Is it? She's never mentioned me breath, but yeah, she never speaks to me head on. Maybe that's what it is. She'll be getting the weed whacker under her arms next week if she carries on.
We might as well use the best tools for the job. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code rugbypod at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the code rugbypod. Thanks, Manscaped, for making our winter wieners look so good. Right, let's get into the Six Nations now. And after we posted a clip last week on social media of Sean Edwards celebrating in the dressing room, he's become a bit of a cult hero in France, and he's becoming fluent in French as well.
Was good while it lasted, eh? I don't want to be horrible. I don't want to be a party pooper. But my goodness me. Teabag and all that. Someone screamed teabag too loud. Now everyone's ill, but hopefully they're not, and they'll be all right.
Fair play though. He's had a proper dig at the language as well, hasn't he?
I was laughing my head off at the clips, but in an endearing way.
Yeah.
Like listening to him, and I know
you can't not like him, can you?
You cannot not like the bloke. Salt of the earth. That is the thing, you know. And you hear of times gone by that, I know it's a bit much now, the guys would die for Sean Edwards and the way that he coached. He is a guy that you would follow. Look at his history as a player and as a coach. I love the bloke. Absolutely love the bloke. Teabag.
Can you imagine a team that was going to be head coached by Sean Edwards and skippered by Jim Hamilton? Imagine the buy-in from the players then.
It'd be ridiculous. We'd have a great night out as well, because we might actually win some games and I'll just be leading the charge.
Well, he's been in charge with Fabien Galtier having tested positive for COVID-19, and a lot of players have tested positive as well. What's the latest, lads? What do we know about the lead into the Scotland game?
All I know is Jim predicted it last week by saying, "Oué le masks, oué le masks, oué le..."
hanging out the masks
when they're celebrating. But yeah, no, like anything we heard about Barnsley earlier, he said, you know, you hope everyone's okay and fine, and that's the first thought. But obviously, how it's got in there, people are saying about the Sevens boys going and training with them. People are saying it's the physio. People are saying it's because of the celebrations in the change room. Who knows? I mean,
that's the thing. I don't want to be a party pooper, right? And you hear about Fiji, and again, you can quote me on this, you can quote me not. It's just going on hearsay. The way that the Fijians live their life, the culture, they don't social distance. You know, they're sharing kava and doing these things, and that's their prerogative, right? But we saw the Autumn Nations Cup; they only played one game at the end. You have to question, and I am being a party pooper. You socially distance during the anthems, right? You win a game and it was a great victory. And I, more than anyone, want to see people celebrate. But it's difficult to celebrate now because you know the reasons why. You've got lads that weren't even in the 23 jumping around in a huddle, spraying beer. You know, you've got Sean Edwards with his trousers down. You can almost see his testicles hanging out. Perhaps that far down. Absolutely loving life. I love to see it. But the French physio's coming on. He's got his nose hanging out of his mask. The Irish physios are going on. They've got 3 layers of mask wearing PPE. For me, having played in France and watching the way that they go about their business, is it a surprise seeing them things, you know, knowing how contagious everything is? I am sounding horrible, but I'm giving you my opinion on watching them scenes, having them beat Ireland. I'm watching them things. I'm like, if there's COVID anywhere near that team, it's going through the team. So
I agree, and the thing around it is people are discussing how it's come about, and like everyone said, you're wasting your time socially distancing for the national anthems if you're doing that afterwards. But people blame the Sevens team coming in. Ireland, you'd expect if these players had it going into the game, you'd expect some positive cases to come potentially out of the Irish camp that haven't come. So you then have to question what are the French been doing. So yeah, Jim's absolutely right. If anyone was going to pick it up, and it's ironic that it was the French that cancelled or postponed some of the European Champions Cup games because they're worried about it, yet they're over in Ireland doing what they're doing. But it's not a laughing matter, but it's just so French, isn't it? The only thing that could stop them winning the Grand Slam is themselves, maybe. Who knows?
Wales, England. George Martin was called up to England's Six Nations squad as Jack Willis, as a replacement. So still no Sam Simmons, Goody.
I mean, Eddie Jones, that's all I'm saying. Listen, I don't want to take anything away from George Martin at all. We've spoken about him on the podcast, haven't we, Jim, how he played really well a few times. Sam Simmons has scored more tries for Exeter Chiefs this season than George Martin has played first 15 games for Leicester Tigers. Bottom line.
George Martin's second row.
And he can play 6. He does play 6, but
he's
again, it's not like for like. Yeah, it's not like for like. You've got a perfect opportunity to pick one of the form players, if not the form player this season in the Premiership with Sam Simmons, and Eddie Jones says now.
That makes you show now that shows now that there's no way in for him. I feel sick for the bloke. Not that sick, just a bit sick. Bit of a sniffle for him. But
Eddie Jones talks about arousal levels and all this stuff. Watch Sam Simmons play rugby and how he breaks the gain line on pretty much every time he touches the ball. You know, the explosion that he's got around off the base at 8, his fast feet, power through the contact, his yards after contact as well. All the things you're talking about that England have lacked. He's got them in spades, and he's performing that way week in, week out. You talk about arousal levels. He gets me aroused, and he gets all England fans aroused, I think. But Eddie says, nah, mate, not picking him, mate. Picking George Martin, mate.
Goody, I saw a headline that you were involved with that you said it's starting to feel a little bit personal now. Do you think it's personal within the players that, or is it just Eddie? Like, do you think there's players that are saying he's not the right fit, or is it completely Eddie?
You desperately hope it's not players. But Eddie Jones said he's not a dictator. So, you know, he's come out himself and say it's not a dictatorship he's running. Listen, Eddie will bite his nose off to spite his face. You know, the first thing he knows people will ask if he brought Sam Simmonds into the squad, should you have done this sooner, Eddie? You know, what's he changed from, you know, now to the autumn to see why he doesn't get picked? But he doesn't want it to be about Sam Simmonds. He wants it to be about himself. So he's probably picked George Martin, and I hate using George as, you know, the reason, but he's probably picked George Martin so that we all know he's not going to change the team, bar injuries. So we all know Billy Vunipola is starting at 8. We all know Tom Curry's playing the back row. Tom Curry, rightly so. But Billy, does he deserve to be picked on form? Does Mark Wilson come back in at 6? You know, it's something where, you know, Courtney Laws, does he play 6? But what he's done is he's just made it about himself not picking someone, as opposed to just giving that guy an opportunity in the environment. I can't imagine any of the players are saying don't pick Sam Simmonds, because anyone around the game that speaks to or of Sam Simmonds, he's a lovely guy, so he ain't got a bad bone in his body. It's not, there's no issue there. It's become personal for Eddie Jones that he's so stubborn and digging his heels in that he's set in his ways, that he doesn't want to pick someone who's on ridiculous form. And you know, George Martin's been drafted into the squad. George Martin ain't going to play, is he? Let's be honest. But it's great for George to get that experience, but Sam Simmonds should have it.
Jim, still no Ben Spencer. Alex Mitchell's been called in to replace Harry Randall.
Again, another one. Rate Ben Spencer. Arguably, you can say Bath aren't playing that well, but it's weird because the way that Ben Youngs plays, I personally think that Ben Spencer plays that way arguably better at times. In terms of his box kicking, physicality, his size, the way that he engages with the pack. I'm almost at the point now where there's no point me even talking about, you know, I don't even pass opinion on it now, because not that it's farcical, but in my opinion, he's not picking the best players.
And that is his prerogative, right? He's head coach, so...
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Maybe he's seeing stuff that we're not seeing, I don't know. Or maybe there is certain personalities that he wants, but it's... You know, I read something or heard Mike Brown this week say something about when he gave his opinion on the way that he was playing personally himself and challenged Eddie, that it went down like a shit sandwich, quote unquote.
Exactly. And another one, Danny Kerr has come out and said, he hasn't played since England played Japan at Twickenham. And he had a debrief with Eddie Jones after that and said, Eddie, I want to play in the full team. And he hasn't played since. So, you know, for Eddie to say it's not a dictatorship, that's fine. I don't eat chocolate. It's not the truth. Because although I haven't eaten that much this week because of my new diet with Tweaked. But, you know, Eddie's all right because Elliot Daly says Owen Farrell's amazing. I'd say the same about my captain if Jim was my captain and I want to get picked as well. And I wasn't playing that well. So, but listen, I'm desperate for England to beat Wales this weekend. You know, all I'm saying is Ben Spencer was involved in that World Cup final and the bus was late. Was it because he was in his room and he held the bus up? That's all I can think. I don't know.
How do you go from being at a World Cup final, singing the anthem "Loving Life" with fans, to next thing you're at Bath, you've got Hoops screaming when they beat Gloucester at the weekend, pulls his snood down that's paper thin as a bloody dirty nappy, and then he pulls it back up and that's it. And then Ben Spencer's nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, it's bizarre, but you know, it's Eddie's prerogative. He wants the limelight on him. He wants us to. He doesn't like it when people ask him these questions because he gives a spiky response, but deep down, he probably goes back to his room and tries to just Google his name and read everything. So he's not a dictator, though. Dictators aren't like that.
Who are you guys picking for the Wales back three now? Josh Adams is back.
Oh, mate, it ain't just about the back three. That Wales back line, and Jim, you're obviously more forward orientated than this, but The Wales back line, George North's back. Where do you play him? Do you play him at 13? Davis is back, Jonathan Davis in the centres. He's there. Do you start with Gareth Davis and Dan Bigger at half-backs? You got Lewis Rees-Zammit, Josh Adams is back in, Liam Williams at full-back, Lee Halfpenny potentially as well. So many of them. What a back line that is. I'd go Gareth Davis and Bigger at 9 and 10, Jonathan Davis and George North in the centres, Rees-Zammit, Josh Adams on the wing and Liam Williams at full-back. World of a back line.
I'm just saying Wales for wooden spoon with that back line.
Mate,
fair play to Wales. Fair play. I'll say it again, and they're getting players fit. Jonathan Davis, Foxy, as they call him, his mates call him. I'll call him Foxy. He'll let me call him that. They've got quality players, haven't they? They've got big game players and come back in half fit, not fit, and they've clearly got a bit of confidence now. And fair play to George North. I, for one, was questioning whether he still had it, and I think he's been brilliant when he's played. In 13,
100 caps this weekend. 100 caps this weekend.
So, 100 caps for George North. However that comes, whether or not it's starting place or on the bench, or hopefully we'll see him fit. But 100 caps to have played the game, how he's played the game, the profile that he's brought to it. Tip of the slipper to you, big fella.
Let's have a look at the Guinness Pint Predictor on Match Pint and get your predictions. If you want to get involved, it's the same format as usual. Just download the Match Pint app from all good app stores, predict the scores, beat your mates, and win great rugby prizes, including signed shirts, ultimate home viewing bundles, and loads of great Guinness gear. And make sure you join the UK's biggest private league with the code RugbyPod. Whoever wins the RugbyPod League outright is going to win last year's Calcutta Cup match ball, signed by the captains Owen Farrell and Stuart Hogg. So it's well worth joining up. Let's start with Italy v Ireland.
I mean, there's whispers out there in the public domain that people are thinking Italy. I don't know off the back of what. You've seen John Cooney not in there,
mate. What's going on there?
Craig Casey played well for Munster the other night. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe another one. Let's not talk about him. He might get in.
Yeah, exactly. But the big thing, Ireland are playing France. Jameson Gibson Park plays the whole game. So Farrell didn't have the confidence to bring Casey off the bench in that game to try and win a game or change a game. Cooney needs to be in the squad, but he's not. So Ireland by 20.
Oh, Cooney's not in the squad.
I'll just blame Jim Hamilton. He's not in the squad.
I'm sorry. Ireland by 9.
Wales, England.
So hard to call.
It is, isn't it?
Because I feel like I'm going against Wales the whole time. I'm going to go Wales by 6.
Really, Jim?
I don't think so, but I'm going to say it because I've been horrible to Wales recently. But I'll go Wales by 6.
Yeah, tough one to call because obviously Wales are 2 from 2 with confidence. They've had 2 red cards go in their favour. They've got a worldie of a bat on, as we just spoke about. England, no form, but got the power players. At some point, England have got to come good, haven't they? You don't lose everything just because we lost to Scotland. Owen Farrell's got to rock up with his balls hanging out everywhere and give a big performance. Billy, rocket up his arse as well. England by 10.
France, Scotland.
Who knows? I mean, who knows?
I'm gonna say Scotland because I don't know how France is going to be feeling. I don't want to be horrible, but I mean, imagine the training week they've had this week.
The thing is, with France don't actually need a training week to rock up and play well because you can't equate good preparation with French rugby being a great performance, can you? They've got the ability to not train a week and just rock up and put 30 on a team. I'm not saying they're going to put 30 on Scotland, but I'm with you, big fella. I might speak a bit of Scottish this week, yeah, pal?
I rock out the new.
How many? What are you going? Scotland by
8.
Scotland by 8. I'm going to go Scotland by 4.
Scotland by 4. All right.
It's crazy to say that away in Paris, but
it sounds great. It sounds right. It sounds good.
No Dupont, no Olivon. I wonder if Fabien Gaultier is recovering with his glasses. Who knows, mate? Scotland by 4.
Right, the Riddle's back to bring us all a little bit of joy this week, isn't it, Jim? And a certain someone special is joining, and a certain someone special is joining us, aren't they?
Yes, they are. She's back. She's been filming. I don't know what she's been filming, but it must have been long because we've missed her. She's missed us, and it's my segment. But Carol's almost taken it over. She will walk me through it. She will guide me through it. It's Jim will solve it, lads. Riddle me this, lads. Riddle me that, Carol. Where have you been? I bet the movie's going to be amazing. I don't know why I was so out of breath then. Just doing that. There was a lot to get through. There. Hit me.
I've missed you, boys.
Yeah.
We've missed you too, Carol, although I'm not happy with all the red, Carol. I'm not happy with all the red there. There's too much Wales going on.
Look at these. You see, I'm getting myself ready for the game on
What's
Saturday.
that? Cans of gold.
Yeah, it's from, where's it from? Reffin Brewing. They've sent a load of us, like these special cans. And I've got my outfit ready. I've got a signed Grand Slam shirt. And the boys...
2006. Was that 2006 or when was that?
When was this one? 19.
Yeah, it was. I know.
It was 19. And the boys say, you should be wearing it because then you've got to wash it. But you're meant to frame a signed shirt, apparently.
Carol, do you want to give us a riddle for Jim to try and solve?
Okay, Jim, are you looking forward to this? Jim, are you looking forward to this?
Yes, I am actually. I feel confident. I feel as if I'm more comfortable seeing you and being friends and stuff like that. So it might.
This time, in honour of the Wales thing, obviously we have a lot of farmers in Wales, so it's like a farming thing.
Oh, okay? Exciting.
And some easy numbers, all low numbers, okay?
So animals, farms, and numbers. Jim's favourite three things.
Arguably, well, I like dogs.
But numbers you can count on your hands, Jim.
Okay.
So the farmer only keeps sheep, goats, and horses. Okay, those are the only animals he keeps. So it's not a trick question at all. It's a maths.
Sheep, goats, horses.
Sheep, goat, horse.
Yeah. So at this particular moment in time, all of his animals are sheep, bar 3. Okay, that was a little joke there.
Oh, you've thrown me, Carol. You've thrown me. You're throwing me though.
No, all of his animals are sheep, except for 3 of them, bar 3. Okay?
So they're all sheep. I'm circling sheep. I've circled all of them as well because that's all he's got. Yeah.
And so here's another fact. All of his animals are goats, bar 4, except for 4 of them.
Oh God, right.
And the final bit of information is all of his animals right now are horses, except for 5 of them.
Oh God. So hit me again.
How many animals does he have, or how many does he have of each animal?
Oh, see, I feel thrown off again. There's so much going on. Right. So only keep sheep, goats, and horses. At the moment, they're all the sheep. So all the sheep bar 3, all the goats bar 4. Oh God. So give me some hints how I work it out. So all the sheep bar 3 of them. So he's got.
So
you know, Jim, that 3 of them aren't sheep. So it's sheep plus 3.
Yeah.
So there's 1 sheep.
Is it 1 sheep?
Is it?
At the moment, they are all sheep, bar from 3.
Start with the horses.
Okay, but how many animals are there to start with? Well, then that's what I need to finish
doing it like so. If all of the animals are horses, except 5, you know that the total is 5 plus the horses. Correct?
All right.
Yeah.
So all horses bar 5. But how many horses are there then? Then I'll be able to work it out.
Exactly. We'll start with the easy. So do trial and error.
Okay, so I'm going to start with 5 because you've got your hands up as 5.
Yeah.
Right? So 5 horses.
No, 5 plus the horses.
There's 5 plus the horses.
Yeah, 1 horse.
Yeah, let's go 1 horse. So there's 6.
And then they're all goats.
Yeah.
Bar 4.
4 of them. So if there's 6 in total.
There's 2 horses then.
No, it's 1 horse.
I'm going to struggle to get this one. I'll be honest. Out of all the ones I've got, I'm struggling to get this one.
It's the panic. It's the panic of having Carol back, isn't it, Jim?
I'm sweating. I'm sweating. So I don't know how you work it out. So in fact, at the moment, so let me just try and do it my way. All the sheep bar 3, all the goats bar 4, all the horses bar 5. I mean, bar 5. I'm just going to add them all together. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
There's 12 animals there, right?
There are 12. 12 is double the amount that they are, because you kind of counted them twice there. So 12 divided by 2 is?
Well, I've got that. There's 6 animals, is there?
In total.
So there's 1 horse.
Yeah.
So there's 1 horse. So there's 6 animals overall. There's 1 horse. I bet it's a lovely little thing. But it's big. But it's big.
Might be a big one.
Yeah,
All goats bar 4.
Might be like Stradivarius, the racehorse. He's big.
There's 4 sheep.
So if there are 6 in total,
there's 4 something.
So how many goats are there?
1.
No.
All goats bar 4.
So
if you got 1 horse.
Yeah, you got 1 goat.
No, all goats bar 4. So you got 1 horse in those bar 4. So there's 4, and you've got 1 horse. We've worked out there's 1 horse. That leaves.
Okay, you hold the fingers. That leaves 3. So you got 3 goats.
No, not the goats. They're all goats bar
sheep.
4. There we go.
You got 3 sheep. You got 3 sheep. Okay. Right. So 3 sheep. Lovely. 1 horse. Okay. And then what's
how
that?
many goats?
The goats. 3, 4.
So remember, it's 6 in total.
2.
Hey!
3. 2.
Hey! Cheers, hon.
I'll be honest. That is the hardest one. That's the hardest one I've ever done. That Carol, out of all your countdown days and your arithmeticians, is that a hard one? Yes or no?
That is it. That is the hardest thing that anybody has ever had to resolve.
It's a good job I'm an athlete, eh?
Right, Carol, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And best of luck this weekend.
Cheers, boys.
Lovely. Look at that. Look at that.
Thanks, Gertie. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, producer Tim. And thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to hit subscribe on whatever platform you get your podcasts on. Leave us a review and check us out on YouTube as well.
Rugby Pod.
Pod.